I have really enjoyed the focus by some smaller companies to make games based on popular 80s movies. We saw this with Terminator Resistance, which told an original story and acted as a better third film to the first two Terminators. The developers captured the visuals, sound effects, and general atmosphere of those movies, along with telling a story that was new and paid tribute to the films. The gameplay was solid with a nice mixture of linear and open levels. Resistance sort of came out of nowhere and was a great surprise. The same developer is also working on a new RoboCop game. Now another set of developers have chosen to tackle the Aliens universe and deliver something that is made for the fans. Aliens Fireteam Elite is hoping to wash away all the bad will of Aliens Colonial Marines, along with providing an action-packed experience. Alien Isolation is a wonderful experience that perfectly replicates the first Alien film, whereas Fireteam focuses on the higher level of action presented in the sequel. And full disclosure, the developers provided me with a review code for this game. Ladies and gentlemen, I present to you my review for Aliens Fireteam Elite. Aliens Fireteam Elite is a new third-person shooter set within the 80s franchise. As a fan of the first two films, the developers nailed the look and sound effects from the movies. There's a respect here for the universe and the fans. While Fireteam tries to tell a story around the action, it can mostly be skipped and it's better for it. The best parts about the story come from the nods to the other Alien films. The action is the best part about this game. It is a great mixture of some light horror elements and atmosphere with a large focus on arcadey action. The game is easy to pick up and play and provides a good amount of options for player expression through the upgrades and the 5 different character classes. Fireteam is not without its flaws, which mostly come from the poor balancing for the single player mode, along with the presentation being lackluster in certain areas, but Fireteam has it where it counts. Much of the development time seems to have been spent on the core gameplay, and that is where the game is at its best in co-op. Aliens Fireteam Elite is a very fun title. Fireteam has 4 campaigns that are broken into 3 missions each. Each of the different missions have the same setup. Run to a set location, defend it, and then move on to the next. Sometimes you will need to collect items and put them into a console, or you need to take out a certain amount of enemies. The design is rather simple, and for the most part it works very well to allow for many intense shootouts. The best of these situations are the end-level last stands. There are some small diversions like finding intel that provides some context to your missions, or fan service highlighting events from prior films, along with finding hidden caches for extra equipment. The levels do a good job of capturing the look from the films, along with having some small elements of horror incorporated into the game. There are a few levels that are too brightly lit, but most have a nice dark setting, allowing for many of your enemies to get the drop on you, and the general nature of the xenomorphs will keep you on edge. There's a nice variety of both enemy types and different factions that you will fight. There's the base level enemies that will come in swarms, ones that explode, ranged attackers, some that lie in wait for you, and ones that will perform quick attacks and then run away. Then you have the synthetics, and many of them are ranged fighters. Then there's the melee rushers, heavies, and suicide ones. And lastly, there are the zombie-like enemies that you will fight in a few levels along with other bugs. While the aliens are the highlight of the enemies that you will fight, the other factions allow for the combat to never get stale. Another aspect that I like is how there will be situations where both xenomorphs and synthetics are in the same area, and they will be fighting each other along with targeting you. For the most part, the enemies are not going to win any awards for their AI, but they make up for that with how much damage they can deal along with the amount of them. There's a great sense of scale at times, and this effectively sells how you are up against a much larger opposing force. And there's some nice touches like having enemies crawling on walls and the ceiling. Simple level design mixed with a wealth of different enemies, and it keeps the variety of the action high. Simply put, the shooting in this game is awesome. The weapons all sound pretty good, from the classic weapons from the films along with the new weapons for the game. The shotgun especially has a pretty good bang to it. The impact is solid as well, making the shooting very rewarding. Bits and pieces of enemies can be blown off, and with there being different factions to fight, their deaths are vastly different from each other. I never got tired of blowing up a xenomorph or causing a synthetic to shoot out all of its liquid. The deaths of some of these enemies actually turns into a mechanic that you need to watch out for. Synthetics can blow up and cause a lot of damage to the player, along with dead aliens leaving acid pools on the ground. Now you have a few options for defense depending on the situation. When fighting gunmen, you can make use of the cover system. For the aliens and zombie-like enemies, you will have the roll. The roll is tied to a stamina bar. This is where the game allows for some learned player skill. Learning the attacks of the enemies and timing your roll can make it very efficient for you to dodge a devastating attack. It is really satisfying to pull off some good rolls while in the middle of a tough fight. Fireteam can look a bit mindless, and in some ways it is, but there are enough small elements that help to reward the player's skill. Learning and effectively using the roll is one, and the other is learning how to mount a proper defense for the last stand locations. Mixed into the rewarding gameplay are the 5 different character classes that you can choose from. There's the Gunner, Demolisher, Technician, Doc, and Recon. While there is some overlap on what weapons each class can use, there are also ones that are specific to that class. For example, the Demolisher can use the launchers and the awesome Smart Gun. Each of the classes have 2 unique active abilities along with 1 passive one. For example, the Doc can pop down a healing station that provides fast health regeneration to everyone within the area. The Recon can provide useful ammo, whereas the Technician can always pop down a turret. Many of the different passives can help you with your ability cooldowns. Or for the Gunner, attacking enemies will actually improve the amount of damage that you can do. As you complete missions, you will gain experience points for your overall rank, the class you are playing, along with weapons you have equipped. As you level up the classes, you will unlock different cores and modifiers that you can equip onto your grid. The upgrade system allows the player to really personalize their character. What I also liked about this is how you can use other cores and modifiers unlocked from playing other classes. For example, I really enjoyed using the SMG as the Technician, and I equipped cores from my class along with others that would boost my effectiveness with the SMG, but I could also focus on my pistol weapons or my abilities. This is where a lot of the personalization comes into play, along with promoting playing all of the different classes to create a set of upgrades that fits your playstyle. Some of the upgrades even can change or modify your abilities, like turning the Technician's turret into a flamethrower turret. Weapons can also level up to improve their stats, along with the player choosing which attachments they want. This provides some options for personalization, like having a weapon being easier to handle, or having one that causes fire damage when you hit an enemy's weak points. As you complete levels, you will unlock more weapons to choose from, along with more attachments. On top of all of this, you will earn 2 different types of currency that can be used to buy weapons and attachments, along with some new cosmetic items. You can even buy some one-use items to help you in levels, like turrets, traps, and different ammo types. There are daily and weekly challenges that provide you with more rewards, and can help encourage the player to try out another class that they haven't considered yet. The shooting and progression works to create this compelling gameplay loop. After you complete the campaign, you will unlock a horde mode. The goal is to survive 10 waves, and then you can extract with the rewards you have earned so far, or you can keep going for more rounds for better rewards. I do like how there is a way to effectively beat the horde mode, and how the rewards are provided in this. It also highlights the best part about the action, and it's very intense. Fireteam's minute-to-minute gameplay mixed with its progression creates an addictive and enjoyable gameplay loop, both being huge strengths for the game, along with a third area, the replay value. The game has a challenge card system that allows players to change the level they are about to play, with the trade-off of getting more rewards. While this doesn't mean that levels will be completely flipped on their head, they help to provide just enough variety to provide a new spin on the level you have already completed. There is a huge variety of challenge cards to select from. Some will change the visual presentation of the game with different filters. Others will restrict your equipment on what you are allowed to use. For example, one challenge card can make your motion tracker useless, which is one of your valuable tools in figuring out where enemies are coming from. There is one that does not allow you to use any consumables, meaning you cannot drop down any extra turrets or traps. The hardest of them only lets you use your weakest pistol to get through a level. These elements have you reconsidering old areas in a new way for you to beat them. And again, the trade-off is that you get more credits and experience. Then there are some really interesting ones, like every time you aim down your sights, you cannot move, or every time you reload, you lose all of your remaining ammo left in your gun. One that really changes up the levels are where enemies are switched out for harder ones. You can activate a card that will turn normal aliens into the ones that explode acid, or one card that will make it so that one of the harder aliens is always pursuing you throughout the entire level. I really love the use of the challenge card system. It allows you to apply a new type of freshness to the game and get rewarded for it. The challenge cards, combined with the rewards, shooting, the horde mode, and a good set of levels, means that you will be playing this game for a long time. Fireteam is easily one of the most fun games of 2021, and there are a good amount of areas that are in need of improvement. From a presentation standpoint, whenever you are talking to characters, their mouths do not move. This is really jarring and makes this aspect of the game feel very, very dated. There are also moments of janky animations that lack that smoothness that you would expect in a polished product. For example, when changing weapons, it can look really odd. After playing the game for about 30 hours, there were a handful of situations of noticing enemies that would get stuck in the environment. This is really where Fireteam shows its AA nature, but like I said at the start, the developers seem to have put most of their time into the gameplay loop, and if they had to pick between a better presentation or gameplay, I think they chose well here. My biggest issue with the game comes from its single player option. The single player feels more like a side mode rather than a true way to really experience the game. The friendly AI can be incredibly dumb, and in many cases having a hard time to even revive you when you're down. You cannot give basic commands to your AI teammates. Considering that many of the bigger action moments have you defending a location, I think a simple system of being able to tell your squad mates to defend here, attack, or regroup would have gone a long way to vastly improve the single player experience. Along with this, I wish you could change the classes of your teammates. They are all set to gunner with no option of having any other classes with you. If the game could allow for some of this customization, it would greatly help the single player portion in this game, especially by allowing you to have AI medics with you offering more healing. Another odd omission is the lack of being able to pause the game in single player. I understand why you cannot do this in co-op, but to have the game always running in single player makes no sense. Fireteam isn't bad in single player, it just feels poorly designed in some areas along with needing more refinement. I do think a few of my suggestions are doable with future patches to be able to improve it. Another bit of frustration comes from the lack of any mid-mission checkpoints. Missions can take anywhere from 20 to 30 minutes to complete. I think checkpoints should be included at least from the easy to hard settings, and then you can leave them out from the really hard settings. Losing at the end of a 30-minute mission can really take the wind out of your sails to keep playing the game. Other flaws are how the objectives are very samey. Turn this switch on, defend this location. Being that this is a co-op focused game, I think allowing for some more interesting objective types would have been good here. For example, you could have a situation where you need one person to carry an object from A to B to turn the power on, but the object is heavy and the person carrying it can only use their weak pistol, while the other teammates need to defend the carrier. Along with this, I think the game could use some more randomization with how enemies spawn and attack you in the game. There does seem to be a light version of this when replaying levels, along with the challenge cards helping with this as well, but more randomization could considerably lengthen the replay value. I ran into an odd glitch for several days where I could not receive new daily challenges. And lastly, the final few missions set up an encounter with the Queen, and while this is a fun set piece moment at the end of the game, you never really get to fight her. This feels anticlimactic and honestly will probably come in a future update patch, but not fighting her in the base game makes part of this game feel a bit unresolved. Overall, Aliens Fireteam Elite has some flaws, but its heart is in the right place. With a solid gameplay loop, good progression, and a variety of classes, and something that I always wanted to jump back into. Aliens Fireteam Elite is both a flawed yet underrated game. It certainly has aspects about its presentation that shows its AA budget, along with needing much more refinement for the single player portion of the game. At the same time, the core gameplay loop of engaging with a vast amount of different enemies and the wealth of rewards will keep you coming back to this one for a long time. Essentially, there is a good amount of unlocks to work towards in the long term, and the minute-to-minute action means that the grind is always enjoyable. I easily recommend this game as long as you have at least one other person to play this with. If you want to tackle this as a solo experience, I would honestly wait for a sale or hopefully some updates to improve that area of the game. Thank you very much for watching.